Good morning or good afternoon, or depending on where you are, good evening. This is David Taylor Klaus, and this is episode 6 of Mindset Mondays with DTK. So one thing I'd love you to do is, using the chat thread, go ahead and ping me with a message and let me know where you're visiting from, where you've dialed in from. Would love to keep track of where everybody's coming to see Mindset Mondays from. All right, and just to give everybody the heads up what we're here for. Again, Mindset Mondays is an opportunity for growth mindset-oriented folks, or folks who want to be, to experiment with new ideas, new mindsets, new way of thinking. The goal here is absolutely to give everybody an introduction to the idea of how powerful it is to control one's mindset. Because as we said in the first episode, the greatest weapon we have against stress is being able to choose one thought over another. And that's what Mindset Mondays is all about. The quote we're going to play with today is actually kind of one of my favorites. Let's show it. There we go. Overthinking is the art of creating problems that aren't even there. So I've been obviously overthinking this one for the last couple days, trying to come up with what we're going to talk about today. And what I love about this idea is how uniform the experience seems to be. When we overthink, we never seem to obsess over how well things might go. In other words, we tend to overthink things towards the negative. One of the things I talk about is catastrophizing forward, imagining every single way that something can go wrong. When I overthink things, I run through every scenario, every possibility of how I can screw it up, or something beyond my control can screw it up. And on one hand, in terms of being prepared and planning ahead, coming up with every scenario that might go sideways is a great way to ensure that we can handle any obstruction, any impasse, any upheaval that comes. On the other hand, what would happen if it all went right? Right? One of the things I learned a long time ago is nothing can kill a company faster than overwhelming success, right? All of a sudden catches on, goes viral, and you can't handle the load. You can't handle the shift. Company can't handle the capacity. Infrastructure isn't there. Now, granted, more often than not, that's not the way things go sideways for companies, but do we ever really overthink and obsess and overplan based on what would happen if everything goes right? Right? Overthinking is the art of creating problems that aren't even there. When you look at the idea of, manifesting, of thinking, what you put your attention to grows, great. If all you're focusing on is how everything can go wrong, then what are you more likely to experience? I wish I could remember and give credit to the person who shared this. I think it was from Manish Samaroti from Note to Self. Great podcast, by the way. The idea of pronoia. So we're all familiar with paranoia, the idea that the whole world is out there conspiring against us, right? So pronoia is the opposite. What if the universe is out there conspiring? What if there is endless possibility and we're not the only ones trying to create for us, that there are other forces out there, other opportunities? Well, if overthinking leads us towards what could go wrong and looking for and creating those problems, we're actually operating against ourselves. I don't have a fantasy of being an artist in terms of painting or sculpture or any of the expressive arts. I want to be an artist in what it is that I do for a living, and how it is that I serve people and the work that I do in the world. If my art is overthinking, that's not really producing what I want. It's a challenge. I like to be creative and like to think that I'm endlessly creative, and I don't want my creativity to be limited to catastrophizing forward. I think part of it is that overthinking takes us away from clarity. Overthinking can distract us from purpose. So what are the ways to shift back to, out of the overthinking? So this is really where I want to hear from you guys, and where you experience overthinking, and where coming out of overthinking is really, what you do to shift that. Part of where I go is refocusing on the essentials. What is it that I know is true? What is essential for me to focus on? What are the things that I know I can do? Where are my strengths? Where is my power, right? Where am I on purpose? And when I can focus on that and start from there, I get less caught up in how many things can possibly go wrong. The coming up with those problems that don't even exist is the domain of the saboteur, those negative voices in our heads that tell us all those horrible things. And I mentioned this during the last one. I want to go ahead and put this up again. positiveintelligence.com/assessments. Let's make sure I type that right. Again, this is positiveintelligence.com/assessments. I talked about that saboteur assessment. It's a beautiful resource that Shirzad Chamine put up as part of his book called, funny enough, Positive Intelligence. It's a way to meet your saboteurs, a way to get a handle on what those negative narratives are that run in our heads. Perfectly natural. It's part of being human. We're actually wired for the negative. And with the caveat for what I'm about to say is no, we never lived at the same time as the saber-toothed tiger, but I'm still going to use that as the metaphor. If we see Bob go over the hill and get devoured by a saber-toothed tiger, we know, don't go over that hill. It serves us as an individual to learn from the negative experiences of others, and even to learn from our negative experiences, right? Go over the hill, see the saber-toothed tiger, manage to get away. We store that memory, that fear-based, that terror, fight, flight-based memory of what happened when we went over that hill. We're going to learn not to do that again. But on the flip side, if we go over the hill and experience pleasure, we're not as likely to encode that, and not as likely to store that memory, that experience. Think about how vivid the memories are of failures in your past. Think about how vivid of negative experiences. Think how vivid the memories are of those positive experiences. Which ones are easier to retrieve and re-experience in a positive, in a full, deep experiential way? So part of this is we are wired to think of the negative. So with that said, we are wired to look for the problems that can come. So it takes us to clear that clutter, of what those natural saboteur voices are going to bring up for us. It takes active thought. It's focusing on what would it look like if it were easy? What would it look like if things went right? Neil, and I hope this whole message, it can appear. All right. One of the biggest ways to stop the worry is what can I and what can I not directly affect? Being absolutely clear on what it is that you can impact. If we focus on things that are beyond our capacity to impact, it becomes debilitating, right? We can be overwhelmed by things that we can't affect. Right? But focusing on the things that we can is a huge gift. Thanks, Neil. Constantly overthinking and envisioning, prepping for the worst case scenario is a byproduct of being an attorney. Christy, we jokingly call that the occupational deformation. You've been trained to plan for every scenario. So what happens if instead of the pretend problems, looking for what are the potential positive outcomes and how do you prepare for those? Love that. You're right. You can only scenario plan as long until you need to just take action, right? And it is, if we constantly plan, when do we go into action? If we're constantly looking at what the negative possibilities are, when do we actually put anything in action? We get so much of, what's the line from the movie we used to watch over and over again with the kids, A League of Their Own. Don't let the fear of striking out keep you from stepping up to the plate. If you scenario plan long enough, you'll come up with a catalog of all the reasons to never take action. Yeah, and Lawrence, again, same experience. The occupational deformation of training in law school and through the law career, you learn how to find every potential negative. It's coming up with what would it look like if it were easy. And by the way, in terms of looking at the systems and testing your systems, testing your process, wow, what would it look like if it all went right? What would it look like if it were easy? How different would this process be? So this is an opportunity, and use this week as the opportunity to clear the clutter of the things that you actually cannot impact, right? Or impact directly, and the things you can impact in the short term, and shift your attention to away from catastrophizing forward, away from that overthinking, shift to what would it look like if it went right? What would it look like if everything went smoothly? How can you shift your attention? What will you choose to put your attention to? So instead of overthinking this week, this is your opportunity to focus, to clear that clutter, to go back to what's essential and what you know is true, and take that opportunity to pick a new mindset and see what the impact is. So until next week, same time next week, 10 a.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. GMT until Eastern daylight or Eastern time. Let's try it again. Until daylight time shifts in Europe. So we will see you Monday morning. And in the meantime, what mindset will you choose? Please join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Mindset Mondays. You can also go to dtkcoaching.com/mm. Look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for playing along today.